wherever you are. My name is Moji Taiwo from the Immigrant Experience Show, and we're coming to you from Calgary today. And before we get going on our show, I would like to tell you that I'm also an author of I Give Because I'm Blessed Because I Give. It's a book about the chronicle of an immigrant's journey. On today's episode of the Immigrant Experience Show, we have the honor of talking with Lourdes Juan.
Yes, I got it. Yeah.
Lourdes Juan. Lourdes is a second-generation Canadian. As you remember, our show is focusing on first and second-generation Canadians. Lourdes is an award-winning businesswoman, an entrepreneur and urban planner, a city builder and founder of the non-for-profits including but not limited to Soma, Haman and Spar, Fresh Routes, Higher Development, Leftover Foundations, and Need Technologies. Is that Need Technologies?
Need Technologies.
Need Technologies.
That's the newest.
Okay, so and we are sitting in the building of Leftovers Foundation, and all the other offices are also here.
Just Leftovers and Fresh Fruits.
And Fresh Fruits.
Yeah.
And she's going to tell us more about those two foundations in a minute here. So, Lourdes is also an avid public speaker and above all, a mother to a cutie 1-year-old Enzo, right?
He's pretty adorable.
He's adorable. I follow you, I follow Enzo all the time. I love little ones because I have 3 grandsons too.
God. Oh, you do?
Yes,
amazing.
and they range from 4 to 8.
Oh wow, they're still little.
They're still little, so I'm having fun with them. Before we start going with Lourdes and finding out more about the amazing work that she does, I would like to give you a little tidbits about Canada. According to Statistics Canada, did you know that in 2018, approximately 8 in 10 people volunteered their time? That's over 24 million people volunteering. And their annual time commitments total more than 2.5 million full-time jobs. Canadians, we give. And it goes back to the title of my book, I Give Because I'm Blessed Because I Give. So that is it, a little bit about Canada. So if you're a new Canadian, old Canadians, or you're planning to come to Canada, this is a country of giving. So, Lourdes,
yes.
The question is, as a second-gen Canadian, if you were to think back about the lives of your parents or family, I want to know about what you remember about your parents' struggles. And then we'll talk about the legacy that has created for you.
Sure.
As this amazing, wonderful young woman that you are.
Thanks, Moji. I grew up, my family, my father and mother immigrated here separately when they were very young. So my father was 13 years old. He immigrated from the Philippines to Winnipeg, Manitoba. As the story goes, there was 40 centimeters of snow, minus 40 degrees, etc., ripped from tropical paradise into Canada, but for a better life.
Yes.
And my mother immigrated here when she was 18 with her brother and her parents. And they met.
From the Philippines too?
From the Philippines as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and they met in Edmonton at West Edmonton Mall.
Oh my. Here we're promoting West Edmonton Mall. Yeah, it's a great place to visit.
Yes, a great place to visit and find your future wife, apparently.
Yes.
So they met there, and so I was born in Edmonton, in St. Albert, my older sister and I, and then
St. Albert,
Alberta.
It is, and it's like what Airdrie is to Calgary.
Yeah.
So it's a small town outside of Edmonton.
Yes.
But now it's not so small anymore because it's growing.
It's growing.
I've actually been there.
Oh, have you?
Yes.
It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from
Edmonton. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they moved to Calgary. They were very young. I think, the immigrant experience is you come here, especially that generation, they had children very young. I think my mom was 21. I had my first child, I was 37.
Well, yes. So you are like my children.
Yes.
And I am like your parents.
Who had children younger.
We came here young.
Yes.
We worked so hard.
Yes.
We started family young while working so hard.
Yes.
And
that's what I witnessed growing up. Like my mother had 3 jobs when she had 3 children at home, 3 small children. We're all, my older sister is only 18 months older. My younger sister is 6 years younger. So we were all young children living in subsidized housing here in Calgary. And my mother worked 3 jobs to make sure that she put food on the table for us. And my father went to university later in life. He went to university and finished his engineering degree.
Oh my, wonderful.
Yeah, but that was the struggle. Is you had one income, and my dad went to school, and it was the 3 of us and a village of family members. always making sure that.
And what does that do for you as a young person, watching your parents trying to make something tangible out of from subsidized housing?
You know what I remember really vividly is, and even today, my parents do not complain. They had to work really hard. They had to work long hours. They had to work jobs that were taxing on them, particularly my mother. She worked, 2 jobs in a nursing home as a nurse's aide, doing a lot of the grunt work. And she worked at a grocery store to put food on the table, to get food at a discount. And so all of these things, and she always just did it with a smile on her face. She was really happy for the opportunity.
What does that do? How did that shape your career, your education, your philanthropies, your entrepreneurship? How did that translate to you?
I'm a perennial optimist, and I'm sure that transferred from my parents of, making sure that we were always finding the joy in whatever we were doing, wherever we were working, and always finding that opportunity somewhere. There's a problem that needs to be solved, or there's people that need help. We come together as a community, as a family, and we help each other. And so I've sort of taken that, I think, throughout my career, because that's how I grew up, really.
So not complaining, just rising up to the occasion and doing what needs to be done.
Exactly, and really finding, the happiness and peace in that, and knowing that it's for a bigger cause, or it's for something bigger. And in my parents' case, it was for their children, who they put through university. They put the 3 of us through university, and it's a different life and a different experience that their children, that me and my sisters have,
compared to what they had.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now that you've touched base on how they put you through school and everything, we want to know about your background.
Sure.
As far as where did your from the education, tell us about yourself.
Well, so I think because I saw my mother always working at a young age, and I remember going to the grocery store and picking her up at the different nursing homes, I just had a sense, I think, of always wanting to work. I sort of had this drive to want a job. And so when I was 14 years old, I took a co-op position. I was in grade 10. I took a co-op position at an architecture company, and I was doing all kinds of work, like filing.
See, that's a lesson to other young immigrants and immigrant parents and kids, that you are never too young to take a leap into the corporate world. At 14, from high school,
yes, and I was in high school. Yeah.
There is a lesson, please. There is a lesson. Never limit yourself. There is opportunities everywhere.
And I think the balance was really good. Like I learned how to balance school and work, and I've done that continuously since I was 14 years old. And that came from, seeing how hard my mom worked. And so I stayed at that architecture firm. Actually, I'm really fortunate to have the mentors that I did there. They kept me on for 10 years, on and off, every summer, anytime they had work. I had a desk there always. It was like my second
that's
home.
So great.
Yeah, it was really, a really blessed experience to go through that. And
somebody saw potentials.
Yeah, I had
they
a good
saw
mentor.
they saw the little plant, and they decided to nurture it and water it.
Yeah,
vigorously.
It was a good experience.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. And so I stayed with them through university and worked other small jobs as well. And so I finished at the University of Calgary with a Master's of Environmental Design.
Okay.
I actually thought I wanted to go into architecture, but when I started university and started taking courses on urban planning and city building, I really fell in love with that aspect of cities and design.
Okay.
And so I decided to go into urban planning. And so I finished my master's in planning.
And that resulted in what business?
So that's that's the Hive development hat.
That's the Hive development, the urban planning and city building.
Yes. So that's that hat. And then I remember going to the architecture firm and working and doing schoolwork. And then at night, I worked at a medical spa for 7 or 8 years, and I was just doing reception. It was a great way to...
Reception and taking in, absorbing everything around you.
Everything.
My kind of girl.
Well, and I learned a lot from that business owner. I eventually ended up buying into that business, and then I left that company in 2010, and that was the year I decided to open up my own spa and my own development company, and I had good support from all sides that I wanted to sort of venture off. So I've been sort of on this parallel path with both companies, and then the nonprofit work kind of came about.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wanted to ask you now, where do you find all that time to do all of this? That I'm going to reserve that for the end.
Okay.
Because I want you to tell us and our viewers about your non-for-profit organizations.
Sure.
Yes.
So in 2012, I started the Leftovers Foundation. And basically it's...
And that's this building.
That's where
we're in a warehouse. It doesn't look like a warehouse.
No, in the back it's a bit messier, but the front is the meeting space. So in 2012, I just saw food that was about to go to waste at a bakery. I was with my cousin who was doing a pickup for his church, I think. And this bakery gives out their food at the end of the day because they don't sell the food the next day. So we took the food, he took it for his purposes, and I took the rest to the drop-in center here in Calgary. And at the drop-in center, they were very gracious, and they said, they happened to mention that they would use up all the bread because they serve 3,000 meals a day.
Ooh, wow.
And in my head, I didn't really know anything about food waste or excess or surplus, and I wasn't really connected to the service agencies of Calgary. But I knew that, what we picked up was almost 200 pounds of bread.
And it could be used.
And it could be used.
Yeah,
and
it could feed some hungry, some empty stomachs.
So from a resourcefulness, entrepreneurial perspective, I thought, I don't want to waste this, especially if it's good food, baked that morning. It makes no sense that we're throwing this away. So I just started to call and other bakeries and other organizations to see if they could use the food. And I remember working out of coffee shops because I was a new entrepreneur. I didn't have an office. So the coffee shop is your office as a startup entrepreneur. And I would just ask if I could come back at closing time, if I could have the pastries, and then I would bring them to the women's emergency shelter, or I would bring them to the drop-in center, and I would just knock on the door and see if people needed food. And 10 times out of 10, they could use the food.
I think your environmental studies also fits into this.
Yeah, there
is always a
connection
somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, well, and I think urban planning really my urban planning training really helps me to think on that very macro level. So, you know, if we're redirecting the food somewhere else, we are making sure it doesn't end up on the landfill, which makes sure that we are not emitting methane into the atmosphere. And there's all these sort of nuances to the work.
And nurturing humans, especially, you knows how many young children are in need of food.
Absolutely, and I think from a service agency perspective too, we want nonprofits and service agencies to focus on their core competency, and that might be sheltering women from domestic violence, that might be, you know, kids programs, and so to focus their fundraising dollars on their programs rather than spending money on buying food, I find that's where the value with leftovers can be, is making sure that we're delivering that food, they're using that food, and then taking those dollars and putting them to work for their programs.
Yes, excellent, excellent. There is one more foundation that you have.
There is, yes. So that's Fresh Roots, which is a not-for-profit social enterprise. And that actually started as a pilot program out of the Leftovers Foundation. And I was finding, and the team, really, we were wrapping our heads around, you know, we are getting food to service agencies, but what about households? And what about households' access to healthy food? There was affordable housing units and Indigenous communities that could pay for food, but they couldn't pay full market value, and it was difficult for them to get to a discount grocery store. And so we saw, you know, again, from an urban planning perspective, you see these communities that live in food deserts where they have no food close to them. Well, if you are, and this was one of the families that we were working with, a young Sudanese family, single mother with 6 children, it's very difficult for her to get on a bus, purchase food enough for 7 people, get back on the bus, carry it back. And so there was a transportation and logistics challenge, but then also a financial challenge to feed that many mouths. And so the concept, you know, we were working with leftovers vendors at the time, and the food industry, the people that we knew, the restaurants and the grocery stores, and my ask was that we purchase food at a discount and then share that discount into community. And so it wasn't a charitable model, but something that we could provide access to communities with dignity. And so Fresh Roots kind of came about that. So we've done some pretty amazing stuff. The team retrofitted a decommissioned City of Calgary transit bus into a mobile grocery store.
I think I've seen it.
Have you seen that
I've
around?
seen it.
Yeah, it's very loud. And so that you can hop on the bus, grab your groceries. Everyone is welcome. And so one of the things I love about Fresh Roots and this model is that it's dignified food access. So we're talking about not handouts, and not hampers. We're talking about people actually shopping for their produce.
But at a discount, affordable at a discount.
Yeah, so we're about, depending on the item, we're about 25 to 40% off, like a superstore price. And so this food dignified model really looks at, you know, what's culturally appropriate for that community. So we'll tailor the food
according to
the
their diet.
And then we'll look at affordability, so making sure we are bringing produce that's affordable. We offer choice, and so we're not giving out hampers. People are choosing what they want to eat. Which I think is a gap in the system.
And I have heard from a social worker friend of mine where they visited a family home, and most of the food that they got in the hampers were just thrown out because it's not what they eat.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that is, I don't think we can pat ourselves on the back and say we did a good job feeding households when they're not even eating the food. And so applying that choice to the mobile grocery stores allows families to get what they want and pay for that and not waste it at the end of the day. And then the last part of this food dignified model is we don't ask for proof of income. So you and I, you know, we can all shop at the market.
Nobody is going to say, you know, before you buy,
show me how poor you are, which is so wrong in my, you know, in my opinion. And so we really need to start, leveling food access
Yes,
and making sure that everyone has
It's a
appropriate
necessity
access.
of life.
Yes,
it's not
it's
a choice.
No, and we've
Yes.
made such a barrier to it in
Yes.
terms of cost and getting there
Mhm.
and all these things. And so the mobile grocery store is really meant to break down those barriers and show up to where people are and making sure that they get healthy food access.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you
Oh,
for
thanks.
doing all of this. It's like I'm thinking, okay, I should have known her way longer before now, but it's never too late. So
That's right.
you never know.
That's right.
Maybe outside of this, you may need me. So
That's right. Well, it's something, when I think back to my parents,
Mhm.
we would have loved to have a mobile grocery store show up in
Yes.
our community.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it would have made life a
a
lot
lot
easier.
easier.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is wonderful. Now I want to go back to that question that I deferred. Where do you find all this time?
Well, so the short answer to that question is I don't.
Mhm.
It was much more difficult before when I just started and it
Mhm.
was just me and I was everything to every
Everybody,
business
yeah,
and every
everything.
organization.
Mhm.
If I think of the spa, I was doing treatments and the bookkeeping and the front desk and all of these things.
Yes.
But over time, I have learned what I'm not good at and what
And
I
then,
am good at, and I
okay.
make sure to bring on team members
Okay.
that complement that. And so,
Mhm.
the time really comes because I have a great team with every organization. And
You need a great team, and you
it's
need
so
to be
crucial.
able to trust your
Yes.
your team.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
so-
there's some reciprocity. Like you
Mhm.
need to be there for them
And they-
because they're
yeah.
there for you. And so,
Mhm.
if you bring on a team that you really work well with and work well with each other,
Mhm.
so much impact and so much change can come out of that.
Yes. And now you're also a mother
Which
of
is so
a
weird to
little
say.
one.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah, he really defines my time.
yes,
He's the boss.
I'm sure he is.
You know.
I know, yeah. I'm sure he is the boss.
Yes.
But that must have sort of created some balance in you now.
Yeah, it really actually has helped me prioritize things, I think, because if I am doing something and I'd rather be with him, I'm really sort of checking, having that sort of self-check. And that has really helped me sort of trim the excess off of what wasn't serving, myself and my family and my work.
Mhm.
And things that I have kept in my life, and I really want to work, a mile deep,
Yes.
and an inch wide, rather than being
Being
everybody
everybody.
to everybody,
Yeah.
being everything to everybody.
That's wonderful. So, as we're going to be ending this conversation,
Yes.
if you have any word of wisdom for young immigrants or second gen that are younger now, what would it be? Share with us.
I really think that, and I still do this now, and I try to do this more, is talking to that generation that's above you and really understanding their experience and where they came from. Because I think that, I love talking to my parents about how they came here, what their life was like when we were small, because it's so different from what they've created for us. And I think there's sort of a humility, and it sort of keeps you grounded and keeps you humble, knowing that just a few years ago or a few decades ago, your own family members were in a totally different position.
I did an interview like this with one of my kids, my daughter, and it was quite interesting for me to
Yeah.
talk to her and get her take on what she remembered
As a child?
as a child of an immigrant
Yes.
parents.
Yes.
So, it says volume to what you're sharing.
Well, I
right
think
now.
there's value in that because it will always be a good reminder of where you came from, and I think that's that's worth its weight in gold.
And always to keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, that there are opportunities everywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely, and be open to learning.
Yes.
And be open to those opportunities and be ready.
Yeah. Well, this has been great.
Thank you.
You know,
so much.
it's a short interview, but
Yeah,
I'm sure we harvested a lot from Lourdes and her expertise and experiences, especially the spirit of giving and identifying gaps in the community in services and creating solutions for those gaps for our community. I personally just loves that.
Thanks.
And adores you for
Thank
that.
you. Well, same to you. I love Diversity Magazine. I've been following it for how many years now?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm a big fan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So before we go now, I would like to thank our supporters who have been supporting us through subscriptions. Please subscribe from our website and also follow us, like us, and share as we bring to you inspiring and empowering stories of immigrants in Canada. So my name is Moji Taiwo, the host of the Immigrant Experience Show. Until next time, we say goodbye and thank you.